Hello and welcome to Unacademy. I welcome you all to the Hindu analysis. We'll be discussing 7 very interesting articles out of the Hindu newspaper, and we have a very good mix of topics. Now, the first topic we'll discuss is with regards to the 16th Finance Commission. What are the new, you can say, terms which have been brought in for horizontal and vertical devolution? We'll talk about how the number of taxpayer has gone up, a data point article per se. Then we have how the new CPI, the Consumer Price Index series, is better than what it was previously. Then we have a very interesting article of Tamil Brahmi inscriptions being found in Egypt, the US being US itself. Then we'll talk about the new Vande Mataram rules which have been pushed through for the national song. And last but not the least, environment, Arctic and invasive species. These are the things which we are going to discuss today. Good morning to all of you. Now, before I begin, preparing for UPSC evaluation is an important aspect. So if you want to evaluate your preparation, you have to become a part of the All India UPSC Prelims mock test, which is going to happen on 15th at 9:30 a.m. and at 2:30 p.m. The link to register for this All India rank-based post-test analysis, mentorship if needed, both in Hindi and English available. If you want to be a part of this, the link is given in the description box. You just have to register for it. So I hope that you will use this opportunity to give this mock test and evaluate your preparation for the examination. Now, the first article talks about the 16th Finance Commission, and there has been a lot of, you can say, conversation about the 16th Finance Commission within the Parliament also, other than other aspects which have also been made up issue in the Parliament. Now, there are two things which you have to understand here. First is, what is the constitutional provisions for the Finance Commission, and what is this concept of horizontal and vertical? Meaning, Article 270 says that there will be division of the taxes out of the divisibility pool between the center and the state and states. And Article 280 gives the president the power to constitute the Finance Commission every 5 years to decide how horizontal and vertical devolution is going to happen. This is the basic provision here. Article 270 of the Indian Constitution says net tax proceeds collected by the central government will be shared between center and state, and this includes corporation tax, income tax, personal income tax, GST, IGST, and the Article 280 of the Indian Constitution says that the Finance Commission will be constituted every 5 years to decide how the divisibility pool will be created. Now, this question of what is the divisibility pool comes through. Now, Article 270 and 280, nothing out of the box, static, you can say polity, division, Finance Commission. Now, when the Finance Commission is constituted, it has 3 to 4 very important, you can say, questions in front of it. The first is, how will the tax divisibility pool, which does not include cess and surcharge? Do understand one thing? If the center is levying cess and surcharge, it does not go into the divisibility pool. Divisibility pool is the taxes which is collected by the center on the behalf of state also and for itself also. And that is where the divisibility pool, there are 2 ways in which the money is divided. One is called vertical devolution and the other one is called as the horizontal devolution. Vertical devolution means that it is the division of money between the center and the states. Meaning, how much out of 100 rupees or 100% will the center get and the states will get. This is called as vertical devolution. Thereafter, for example, we decide that 50-50 will be the division, 50 rupees with the center, 50 rupees with the state. Then the next part which the Finance Commission has to divide is, under what principles will this 50 rupees be horizontally divided and given to different states. So there's an aspect of vertical devolution and there's an aspect of what is called horizontal devolution. Vertical and horizontal, two very important principles are in context, and what is even more important is what is the principle which is applied for devolution or division of money amongst the states itself. So the 16th Finance Commission has given its recommendation, the center has accepted also, and now the new Finance Commission recommendations will be implemented. As I said, 270 and 280 give the right through the Indian Constitution for the president to do something like this. Now, the states were demanding, before we talk about the recommendation itself, the states, there has been a lot of friction between state and center over GST compensation also. So the states were saying that 41% devolution was decided, 41% devolution was decided under 15th Finance Commission. That out of the money which is there, 41% states will get, 59% the center will get. This was also changed. This was changed because of the fact that it was previously 42%, but this was reduced to 41% when two UTs, Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh, were created. That was a, you can say, expenditure on the state there or the center. Therefore, 1% was reduced and given to the center. Now, what the state said is, please increase there were two types of demands. Certain states said that the vertical devolution should be 50-50. 50-50. 50% center, 50% state, from 41% to 50%. At the same point of time, some states said that it should be increased to 45 or 48% because there is more pressure on the states because of the fact that we are not getting GST compensation on time. So this was the first demand. So this set of demand was for vertical devolution. This was vertical devolution. Now, there was another lobby which existed for the other aspect, which is horizontal. And horizontal said that income distance, which is the per capita income of every state, in a way decides what is the amount which is going to be given. Income distance mean, for example, if the per capita income or the people of Karnataka are earning more and in Bihar they are earning less, more money would be given according to the weightage which is given to income distance. But the idea was income distance weight should be reduced. At the same point of time, the horizontal devolution should also take into account how much contribution each and every state makes to the GDP, and therefore there was an idea that why not allow states performing more to the or contributing more to the GDP, getting more money, because they lose money based on either the concept of demography or in the concept of income distance. They were being penalized for becoming more and more advanced, industrialized vis-a-vis other states. These were the two major demands for vertical and horizontal. Now the point is, what has the 16th Finance Commission said? The 16th Finance Commission first major demand which was made by the states was cess and surcharge should be discontinued or should be added to divisibility pool, or should also be, there should be a limit or a ceiling over which the center can do it. 16th Finance Commission says we cannot do it. We need cess and surcharge to be with the center for any form of tax emergencies and generally for defense and infrastructure spending. With regards to the percentage of vertical devolution, it was kept at 41% only, taking into consideration that infrastructure and defense expenditure has to increase, should be increased, and the center is already sending a lot of money under central sponsored schemes, and the fact that what is the state share to the overall GDP of the country. So therefore, two major demands, two major points. 16th Finance Commission says we will keep it at 41%, no change vis-a-vis 15th and 16th. Second, With regards to cess and surcharge, they said we cannot include it into the divisibility pool. It will remain outside the divisibility pool. So vertical devolution remains more or less the same, 41%. But now the idea is defense and infrastructure spending has to increase. Therefore, we will not give you back that 1%. But where the real change has come through is in horizontal devolution. In horizontal devolution, for the first time, states' GDP contribution has been taken into consideration. So because state share should not change drastically, the new aspect of contribution to GDP has been added, and a weightage is such that it is not drastic. So if we look at the way the new concepts have changed, see for example 13th, 14th, 15th and 16th Finance Commission, income distance 47.5, 50, 45, 42.5. So income distance criteria weightage is going down. Population data previously taken from 1971 till 14th Finance Commission, 2011 has been taken in 16th and in 15th. But the weightage of population has increased by 2.5%. Area 10, forest 10. Nothing changes here. Area 15 to 10, 10, 10. What is interesting is now demographic performance, which was 12.5, is 10. And new concept has come through, which is this state's contribution to GDP. So if I mark it in red for you, see income distance, population, area, forest, the aspect of demographic performance and state's contribution to GDP are the new indicators which have been taken into consideration. But what has happened is this has gone down, income distance, population has gone up, forest area has gone down, forest is the same, demographic performance has gone down, and this is a new concept altogether. So this 10% has been taken out from the concept of area and the concept of demographic discipline and income distance. This is an important slide for you, because this will give you an understanding of how the 15th and 16th stack up vis-a-vis each other, which is how there's a difference in this. And this is interesting because now this has certain implications. So what is the overall conclusion or overall implication of all of this is even more interesting, which is, see, most probably the share of horizontal devolution for south and western states will marginally increase and north and central states will go down. Then the Finance Commission has taken into consideration the fact that center should progressively reduce cess and surcharge reliance. The state should make their subsidies better. This is a concept of the freebies which are given. And last but not the least is public sector enterprise reform, specifically DISCOM reform, is something which they've talked about. Now, you have to understand one thing very clearly, very, very clearly, which is 16th Finance Commission. We have certain changes and certain principles. Before I make this what is called as flowchart or mind map, are we all on the same page till this point? Come on, everybody, tell me, are we on the same page? Yes or no? Income distance between the income of, no, not of the income distance between the per capita income of the states. Okay, now changes, new, you can say addition is contribution to GDP and what we call as the concept of cess and surcharge. This has been explicitly stated, that is why it's a new change, cannot be added to the divisibility pool. Area, the concept of population, and the aspect related to income distance have area, income distance, and demographic performance. They all weightages have gone down, as we saw here. 1, 2, and 3. This is where this state's contribution to GDP comes through. And when we talk about the principles, center 41%, no change, center state, no change. Why? Because defense spending plus infra plus the aspect that central sponsored schemes are there, so therefore center is already spending more, and there needs to be change in the overall horizontal outlook, but that has to be gradual. That has to be gradual. So this is basically what we have understood till this point. Cess and surcharge cannot come under divisibility pool. 41% devolution. Horizontally, states' contribution to GDP has been added. Further, the Finance Commission has very straightforward said that we want to change the principles. We would like to change the way states get their money. But that has to be efficient, that has to be slow. And that is extremely important for us to understand everything in the larger scheme of things. So, if the UPSC gives you a question like this, which is the weightage of the criteria of state share to GDP under 16th Finance Commission spells a directional change without causing a drastic shift in state share, comment. This is a very realistic question. There are 2 to 3 words which have been used categorically. One is called directional change. The other one is gradual change. But the aspect that states' contribution to overall GDP should matter this is very important. These are the words which you have to use in the examination. Can you do that? Can you do that? Sorted? Everyone? This is the question. These are the words which have to go into this. Perfect. Now, the next article deals with data point. Now, data point, a standard issue of the Hindu, generally points out to something interesting, because in UPSC, GS paper 3 and in prelims, in economics, you get the question on trends. What has been the trend in something? So previously we discussed the trend in even voting behavior. Today, the question which the data point wants to answer is based on the aspect of how there is a change in the number of taxpayers. So economic survey data taken through, and along with that it gives you an understanding about how taxpayer data has changed. Now, I'll ask you a qualitative question which has a quantitative base. Then we'll look at this, because this talks in a very lot of positive light. But You tell me right now, vis-a-vis developed countries, the percentage of population which is paying taxes in India is comparable, is drastically low, or you can say equal to what developed countries have. Total number of taxpayers as percentage of population in that. Aman says low. Low, very good. See, vis-a-vis the developed countries, where we have the range of population paying taxes in the 30s, 40s and 50%, India, the total number of people who are paying taxes as part of the percentage of the population is less than 10%. You will have different sources, some say 3%, some say 5%, but it is less than 10% for sure. Now, this in itself is very problematic. This means we all pay taxes. That is a separate issue altogether in indirect form, in the form of GST and all. But direct tax, income tax, is extremely low. 10, 11, but not more than 11. The idea is, if you go by the, you can say Western data, they will say 3 to 4%. Our data says 10 to 11%. The basic point is, it's in the 10 to 11%, 12%, less than 15% if you want to call it. The point is not that. The point is, it is extremely low vis-a-vis, for example, a developed country which would be in the range of 30 to 60%. In the Scandinavian countries, 75% of the population in certain cases is paying taxes. The point which I am trying to come to, which is a qualitative question, not a quantitative question, the data I have quoted is just rhetorical. The point is that we in India have already a very small fraction of the population which directly pays taxes to the government. A lot is on the idea that agriculture is tax free. We have a demographic dividend which is still very young. The idea that we also have a lot of people under 12 lakhs per year, and therefore tax breaks and all lead to the reduction in the number of taxpayers. Now, one very important point which you have to understand here very clearly, is that this data shows a positive trend. It shows a positive trend. The positive trend is, vis-a-vis 2013 and 2024, the number of taxpayers has increased from 5.26 crore to 12.13 crore. So this is return on income tax filing number. So 5.26 crore to 12.13 crore. Basically, it's saying doubling. There's an increase, and the taxpayer base has shown a compound annual growth of 7.89% over 11 years with better compliance under PAN. If you look at the data also, you will see that this graph is steadily going up with one major dip. That one major dip is COVID. 21-22 and 2019-20. COVID years showed the number of individual taxpayer to decline by nearly 9% because a lot of people lost their job, unemployment rates increased, but thereafter it has been steady. Now, why am I having this discussion with you? The reason for that is, in the examination, they can give you you can say qualitative statement, which is the number of taxpayers in the past decade has exponentially increased. That statement is correct or incorrect? Exponentially increased. Very good. That statement is incorrect. the number of taxpayers has not exponentially increased in the past decade. The word would be gradual increase or steady increase or steady increase, because there was a point where there was a dip also. So it's a steady increase from 5 crores to 12 crores. This is for individual taxpayers. When we take into consideration non-individual taxpayers, which would include, for example, companies, firms, Hindu undivided family associations, which also have resident PAN status, there is also here a dip that is going to be obvious. Same, you can say, dip at the same point of time with individual taxpayers with regards to COVID. But here again, from 29 lakh, it has increased to 48 lakh, which is 0.29 crore to 0.48 crore, 5% growth rate. So here again, we have had a gradual increase. Here it is much lower than there. It was at least 2x. It is not properly 2x here. But what the data point points out is, with increasing taxpayers, the cost of tax collection should go up or down. If I have more taxpayers, twice as number of taxpayers, my cost of tax collection vis-a-vis the income tax department should go up or down. Come on. It should go up because my number of taxpayers has doubled. This is where the article points out a very interesting thing. Because of the administrative reforms, digital filing, faceless assessment, and third-party information reporting, aggregators, the cost of collection of direct taxes has actually gone down. From 1.36% to 0.41%. So now what do we do with this data? We have three important trends in focus. The first, individual taxpayers have gradually and steadily increased. At the same point of time, the number of non-individual taxpayers has also increased. Cost of collection of direct taxes has gone down. But one thing which this article does not say is percentage population paying direct taxes very low as compared to developed countries. Do we understand this article? Basically, this is the first article gave us certain conclusions. I'll bring all of them together. There's one more article based on what is called as economics or economic principles. We will bring everything together on one slide. This is making sense. Trend-based analysis, data point always interesting in that sense, right? Okay, perfect. Now, the third article is something which we've already discussed. But this is written by the Secretary of Ministry of Statistics, Programming Implementation, basically the person who is directly or sitting on this data. He is the one who's written this article. That is why it becomes important. Sometimes the article may be relevant, but the person who's writing may not be relevant for UPSC. That also happens. Not every editorial is relevant for UPSC, and the person who's writing is equally important in that story. Now, when we talk about CPI, Consumer Price Index is a very important indicator because it takes into account goods and services. It is related to what you and me feel. But the problem was that CPI base year was 2012. And recently, the base year has been changed. This change in base from 2012 to 2024 has been argued as a very important, you can say, structural change which has happened in understanding inflation in India. So CPI, according to him, is the one who is the one which actually captures the real inflation and the reality of day-to-day experience of inflation. CPI is a daily mirror on how much food, fuel, and you can say basic needs cost is there. And even the RBI takes a call on inflation, and the MPC takes a call, Monetary Policy Committee also takes a call looking at CPI inflation. Therefore, CPI is important. And that is why two major changes were brought into the CPI. This is very important. First is base year 2012 to 2024. And second was that the basket on which it was based on which inflation was calculated, was now based on household consumption expenditure survey. In very simple terms, it means previously the basket has things which were irrelevant today. For example, kerosene. Nobody buys kerosene today. Rather, it should be LPG. So, what we had seen is the macro changes. Because he's the secretary, he's the IS officer who's dealing with this, he has given us the 4 or 5 interesting ways in which CPI has changed further. So we all know that it has become from 2012 to 2024. This is okay. This we all know. We also know that the basket has been revised. But within that basket, more relevant things have been given more weightage, which is important. So there is more weightage to household items. Second, the service spending with regards to digital purchases and lifestyle trends, that has also been taken into consideration. Not just goods, but also services. At the same point of time, CPI calculation in India is now more aligned with the world. Therefore, it is more comparable with the world. Interestingly, the new system captures online prices also, rather than looking for in traditional market service what is happening on the wholesale scale. Further, computer assisted price collection is going to happen, and rail fares, postal charges, fuel prices, PDS, government source, everything has now been added into this. Meaning CPI has been actually properly revamped in such a way that it takes into account digital services, online prices, and the realities of 2025 and 26, 27, whatever we are living in. So, together, we have done 3 articles which are quite interesting, quite important, and generally give us a lot of insight into what is happening at the level of economics and its current affairs. So, the first discussion we had was 16th Finance Commission. 41%, no change there. The state's contribution to GDP has now been added as a new concept to GDP. As a new concept. Cess and surcharge has been kept outside. And there is a directional change. Now, add to it the second article, which talks about income tax data, or rather taxpayers data. We have seen individual taxpayers go up, non-individual taxpayers have also gone up, and cost of tax collection has gone down. At the same point of time, CPI, Consumer Price Index, has been revised. We have 2024 as the base now. We have household survey of 2024, rather not 24 but 23-24 in focus. And at the same point of time, it is now aligned with more digital services. Weightage has also been adjusted, more aligned with global standard. So our conversation till this point has been, you can say, continuous in the way that it is linked to the larger concept of what we understand, which is all of this is in a way interconnected also, but relevant for the examination in every way or form, from 16th Finance Commission to the concept of CPI to the concept of taxpayers data. Are we clear about this? This is the general thematic which we followed. I want everybody's consent here, sir. I understand this because this is basics. Very simple, straightforward. Shyam sir would take it to another level. But if you don't know the basics, you are then in a way in the wrong zone of preparation. Right? Okay. Perfect. Now, we have a very interesting development from Egypt. And two French scholars have found Tamil Brahmi inscriptions in a necropolis. Necropolis means a graveyard which has a proper graveyard per se, meaning a lot of people are buried together. And this is quite interesting because it is not something new that India was connected to Egypt as late as in the colonial period itself. But as early as the what we call a 6th century BCE, we see that there is trade with this sector. A very good relationship during the Mauryan period. Thereafter, Sangam age, rather Sangam polities were also interacting with the Egyptian sector quite a lot. Now, we have found 30 inscriptions, basically graffitis per se, in Tamil Brahmi, Prakrit and Sanskrit. Now, you have to understand one thing. Tamil Brahmi is the script which has been found. Prakrit and Sanskrit is the language which has been found. Meaning the script was early Tamil Brahmi, which is Brahmi was transforming into what is called as Tamil, Old Tamil as it is called, and then in turn Old Tamil will give the rise to the other scripts of the southern sector. And these have been quoted to be at 1st or 3rd century CE, which is basically post-Mauryan period. Post-Mauryan period is the boom of India's trade and the Indian subcontinental trade. If you have done ancient and medieval or with me or with someone else, you would know that post-Mauryan is the highest point of overseas trade in India. And that is where we have to understand how this early form of what we call as the Tamil Brahmi inscription in a way accredits to the fact that we were connected to the world quite well. So this is out of Ubinder Singh. I just wanted to show you this because some of you will say, what is Tamil Brahmi? See, Brahmi is considered to be one of the oldest, in a way in multiple spaces considered the oldest script in India, which was used as early as in the 3rd century, rather 6th century BC. And to be very honest, the whole concept of the Vedas is based on Brahmi and Sanskrit only. But over a period of time, Brahmi started to evolve and it branched out. Around this 1st century, 3rd century period, which is this transition from post-Maurya towards Gupta, there were two branches of Brahmi which got created. One is called Old Tamil line or Tamil Brahmi as it is called. And this will further by 12th century give rise to all these scripts of South India. On the other hand, you have one branch which will then become the mother of all the scripts of what is called as North India. And from Mauryan period, Tamil, Brahmi and Brahmi started to evolve. The one which is known to be very important for the North Indian sector is called as Siddhamatrika. Siddhamatrika script is the one which is actually used for as a way or as a predecessor to all of the scripts or most of the scripts in North. South, we have Old Tamil script or Tamil Brahmi in that regard. So this is a very important line, Tamil Brahmi, because script is accrediting to the fact that which it is placed on. Now, what are these inscriptions? These inscriptions are found in the Theban necropolis, and basically when Indian visitors, South Indian visitors, mostly from northwest, west and southern region, but southern region more, because it is the Tamil Brahmi inscription is there, therefore the Tamil you can say southern connection is there. What we have found is that when they visited this necropolis, they added their name there. This is basically graffiti. There is graffiti in Greek there also, but these inscriptions are inside the tomb saying that we were here. We were here. So basically, the concept of Tamil Brahmi and the idea that Sanskrit and Prakrit is used, this confirms to us that we had, though we had enough evidence previously also, but it is direct evidence to going to these necropolises also. Meaning they were visitors, they were tourists from India per se, mostly merchants. So, three important conclusions out of this article. First, you should understand the difference between script and language. Second, you need to understand the evolution of scripts in India. So, this Upinder Singh, you can say, graph is, or this mind map is very, very important. This representation is very, very important, how it changes. And at the same point of time, we know that 1st to 3rd century CE is the period of proper boom under the Kushanas, Satavahanas and the Sangam polities, Chera Chola Pandyas. That gets accredited and attested, corroborated by what we found in the Theban necropolis in Egypt also. Are we clear about this? Interesting development. In a way, cements our position as the center of the Indian Ocean world and as a trade partner to the Indian Ocean world. Yes? Okay, nothing out of the box. Okay, perfect. Now, the next article is about US being US. See, if you remember, I was the one who was taking CNA on the day after the US-India trade deal, BTA was announced. And that day itself, I had predicted and said to you that US cannot be trusted, and the US understanding of what they have said on that day through Trump and what they will do on paper, you never know. Exactly same concept has happened. The US initial document of the India-US BTA had certain references to certain things. US has dropped those references from the initial statement itself and added certain things also. This is problematic, wherein initially pulses agricultural products, digital services and commitment on investing $500 billion. This was there. Now it has been removed. And rather, now in a way it has been added that India will invest $500 billion and our agriculture sector is on the table. This is where a lot of controversy has erupted yesterday and day before yesterday, wherein the White House fact sheet of the India-US framework now has removed the references to pulses, agricultural products, digital service tax, and commitment on investing 500 billion in India. Rather, Indian commitment has been talked about, wherein we had intended, not had a binding commitment to invest. At the same point of time, there was no point of taking pulses into consideration. Agricultural products were considered to be outside the purview of this understanding. There is even more controversy here because the trade representative initially a different map was shown, a map in which Aksai and POK was not shown as part of the Indian subcontinent. Later, social media map which was posted by the US trade representative had included Aksai and POK. This was seen as a certain, you can say, victory for the Indian diplomats, which is to make the US accept that they are not disputed territories but are an integral part of the Indian subcontinent. That is why you find two different maps online also. The point is that this is a good thing, but this is where US has already started to play games. And the game is what they had initially committed and what they are now committing to and what the commitments are. It is evolving and they are changing it. That is where US BTA, in that regard, bilateral trade agreement, is problematic because the finer details of the BTA was not shared, unlike, for example, the EU FTA. We still don't know what are the actual terms and conditions. The timing of this BTA, along with the way a lot of controversies erupted within the parliament itself, with the speaker taking into consideration, everything as of right now, lot of pressure on the government to explain itself. And this does not help per se. Does not help. Now, adding to all of this, this is just a heads up to you. This is US being US. Nothing out of the box for you per se. Nothing to be learned here. Just that we are trying to demonstrate to you how world politics and world, you can say, geopolitics is in an uncertain zone because of the US only. Trump says something right now, will say something else thereafter. So, this is the concept. Now, Vande Mataram has been in the news for now close to 7 to 8 months. If you want to understand the finer details of the Vande Mataram, what is the controversy per se with regards to how 6 stanzas are there, only 2 are read. There's a whole video I made for it, which is the Vande Mataram controversy. You can actually watch it, same platform, there's a video. Just to give you a gist out of that video, the accusation which was made by the government of India was that 6 stanzas are there, only 2 are read. 1937 AICC meeting decided that because the next 4 stanzas were too specific to the goddesses and had a you can say Hinduistic connotation. So to make the national song more ubiquitous, available and for everybody to sing, the first 2 stanzas were prescribed by Rabindranath Tagore himself. However, the government said that this was a part of the larger communal understanding that communism, the seeds were sown in 1937. A very simplistic understanding of how communism and how Muslim League and how partition happened, but that is what is expected from politicians. The point here is now there is a proper guideline which has come for Vande Mataram and the national song, which has to be followed now. Which has to be followed. The Republic Day thematic was Vande Mataram, but now what the Union government has said, that the national song, when it has to be played with the national anthem, it will be played before the national anthem, and the fresh guidelines tells you how and what are the protocols which have to be followed, which is whenever the official version will be sung, it will be 3 minutes 10 seconds and everybody has to be in attention. If it is in an official setting, not in a recreational setting, not in a, you can say, commercial setting, and not in a setting of a documentary news reel per se. Meaning, if it's in a movie, you don't have to stand up. The point is, these are the 4-5 important things which have been talked about. It has to be sung before the national anthem, must stand for the official version, no need for standing if it is for newsreel and documentary, and the official version shall be accompanied by mass singing during national flag unfurling, cultural occasions, ceremonial functions. So most probably next time on 26th January and most probably on 15th August of this year, you are going to just hear the national anthem. It will be national song first of 3 minutes 10 seconds, then the unfurling, and then the national anthem. National anthem will be second, national song will be first. This is an important aspect which should be sung before the national anthem, when both have to be performed. So very simply, there are multiple smaller, you can say sub notes here, but we don't need to go into that. You are not the organizer of a certain function. You don't need to go through it, but just want to give you again a heads up that right now this is the priority of the state. There is one news which has still not been accredited. 3 minutes 10 seconds means that all 6 stanzas would be sung, but that has not been quoted by the Hindu newspaper. Most probably the first 2, if not 2, all 6 will be sung. Then only it can be 3 minutes 10 seconds. Please understand this point. This has not been accredited. If you look at X, if you look at the different news, PIB and all, there's no exact wording which says that all 6 stanzas have to be sung. But if it's 3 minutes 10 seconds, it has to be all 6. They are just saying national song, Vande Mataram, and not saying, but there are certain reports which are coming through. First 2 stanzas can't be 3 minutes 10 seconds. Certain reports which are coming through which says that it is not the first 2 but all 6. I'll give you an update on that when we get official confirmation. Official confirmation is not there. They're just saying this, that it is this is the line which says, it state that whenever official version of national song around 3.1 minutes long is sung, audience shall stand for attention. We are smart enough to understand that the first 2 stanza would not be 3 minutes 10 seconds. The whole Vande Mataram as written by Bankim Chandra Chatterjee vis-a-vis Anandamath as published in Bangla Darshan, that is 3 minutes 10 seconds. So this is something to be seen and something to be decided. Let's see. Bangla Darshan 1875, 150 years. Perfectly fine. The last article is related to environment and ecology, both for prelims and mains, quite important. See, as of right now, there is a boom in Arctic, you can say, tourism. The idea that it's a proper last chance tourism option, and the Arctic Circle is one of the best examples of how our environment is changing, how the earth is warming, and therefore it is very clear in one thing that the Arctic Circle, which was previously unexplored, which was it is considered till today a very important space for mineral and oil. Arctic exploration has increased. But what this article points out is this ecological disaster which is actually happening will be accompanied by one more disaster, which is going to be a biodiversity based disaster. See, there are 2 types of species which you find in a space, which is called native species, there is called invasive species. Invasive species, what they do is when they enter into a certain ecosystem, they kill or rather they disrupt the food chain or the environment in such a way that the native species die out and invasive species are able to take over. Now, as of right now, when we talk about the Arctic has what is called as a tundra ecosystem, you can say environment, which would have one of the coldest parts on the ground or on the earth, non-vascular plants such as lichen and the tundra ecosystem is dominated by snow owl, Arctic fox, grizzly bears, seals, walrus and thereafter. However, there is a report which has been published by Neobiota, which says that there are already certain alien floral species which have actually invaded Arctic ecosystem, and if not managed properly, it will in turn lead to the original tundra ecosystem to be disrupted, and these non-invasive species, or rather the non-native species and the invasive species, to actually enter and disrupt the whole ecosystem itself. This is a very problematic aspect because we have already seen in Svalbard certain non-native species which are found in Russia and Europe, and they have reported 2,554 vascular plants which could find suitable place in Arctic Circle. But then a very simple straightforward question would be, how would they reach there? And this is where I think you must remember, or there was a news where a mosquito has been found, say, in the Antarctic sector. The idea was, how did that mosquito reach there? And that is where the idea of transportation comes through. With more and more exploration, with more and more sea routes coming up in that sector, there will be what is called as a proper alien species invasion into the Arctic Circle because of accidental introduction. So the reason why they are saying this non-native species will reach there is because escape from confinement. 48% of invasive plants introduction are through transport and stowage. Further, 37% is seed contaminants, transport via vehicles, and 14% are through proper introductions. But till today, 43% of all introductions of invasive species is unknown. We don't know how it happened. This is an important article for GS paper 3. Extremely important for GS paper 3, and the concept of invasive, non-invasive, the native, and the idea. All of this becomes very important. And now there can be a question in GS paper 3 which can talk about how the modern container traffic and the sea route traffic, the maritime routes, can in turn have a much disastrous consequence, not just the CO2 which they release, but through also introducing invasive species into unexplored tundra regions with the glaciers melting and receding. So, with this, our agenda for today is over. What we've understood is 16th Finance Commission, taxpayers' data increasing, the concept of CPI, you can say CPI data being changed and the base year being changed, and we've understood how Vande Mataram 3.1 minute has to be sung. You have to stand before the National Anthem. We've also understood the concept of Arctic Circle invasive species out of the science section, and ballast water, very good point. Ballast water, one of the biggest way of contamination. And last but not the least is US being US, now backtracking on a lot of aspects which it said last week. So with this, thank you so much. For the students who were looking for the PPT of the Modern India Marathon, it has been updated into the link which is there for all the PPTs of Conquer Prelims. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.